So in this first week, we're going to look at perseverance. Why is it important that James will want the Christians to know about perseverance? First, he's dealing with trials, and he tells the Christians to consider it pure joy when they face trials. And one may ask, pure joy? Why? So James is not just saying that trials are a good thing, as much as James is saying when we face trials the right way, they provide an opportunity to learn. And when we learn and grow in our spiritual life because of the challenges we face, that can bring joy because of the process and what we learn from at the end of it. Perseverance is also important because the tendency when we face trials may be to flee. But fleeing is not an option as far as James is concerned. There's a way in which then James, his teachings, match what Jesus Christ prays for his disciples. When Jesus Christ prayed, he says to God, I'm not praying that you take them from the world. I'm asking that you protect them from the evil one. James wants us to persevere because we do not have the possibility, it is not an option for us to flee from the trials, but to go through them and allow these trials to help us to grow in our Christian life. But perseverance is important because of the knowledge that God is present with us in them. That's why then in the beginning of the letter, James puts a lot of emphasis on who God is. He is good. And if God is good, then everything good that we have comes from Him. He is our Father. And as our Father, then God is the one who's protecting us. God is the one who's preserving us. God is the one who's fighting our battles for us. So then even the joy, even the other things that we do them because we're not left on our own. But as a result, it's very also important for us to show our dependence on Him, which is why he calls the Christians to have single-mindedness. You have to be firm. You have to have a clear understanding of why you are behaving the way you are. Not because you're left on your own, but because God is present. Not because trials are fun, but because at the end of it, there's something that's waiting when God shows up and He brings deliverance and the challenges are changed to joy. Perseverance is important because as we live through those trials, there's the opportunity that people who see the good deeds that come from us, they can now glorify God. And James is encouraging the Christians to live that way. So as we go through the first week, we're looking at a call to perseverance. Perseverance because James is writing to people in diaspora. He says to the churches of the dispersion. And the idea of dispersion, the idea of diaspora in and of itself already implies a background of suffering, already implies a background of challenges. And what we find is that James Christians, the Christians that James is writing to, are Christians who are living in such a way that life was becoming difficult both in interpersonal relationships and in the way they were living within society. Because the kind of way of life that is required of God's children go counter to the kind of standards of what the world wants. So when as a Christian, as a child of God, you're living in a way that is countercultural, the world does not understand. Your friends do not understand. And you yourself sometimes have a pressure internally to either compromise or the pressure internally to be intransigent. And throughout the letter, James is teaching the disciples, James is teaching the Christians on how to have the right kinds of behavior that is characteristics of God's children. Perseverance is important because we can't flee. Perseverance is important because we are aware that God is on our side. And if we learn to depend on Him, He is able to take us through these challenges. So as you go through week 1, I encourage you to think about how does your life need to change in order for you to experience a God who preserves, a God who protects, so that you learn how to persevere through the trials that you face.